Hello and welcome to Beat Teacher Burnout podcast. I'm so pleased you've come along today because we've got an amazing session with two really, what I would say, young and inspirational and experienced teachers. So we've got Miss Wylde and Mrs. Dearman with us today, both secondary school teachers and both in very different types of schools. So I'm just going to head straight in and ask you both to introduce yourselves. So Miss Wylde, tell us a little bit about you.
Hiya, thank you so much for having us on today. We're so excited to be here. So I am Miss Wylde. I have come through the Teach First route, so I have a real passion for beating educational inequality and making sure that every student has access to a fair education. That is my passion, and I really want that to be the case for every student. So I came through the Teach First route. And then through my career, so I'm now in my 7th year of teaching, I've had a real passion on working through teaching and learning, and working with lots of different teachers on how they support their children, how they develop their practice. But within that, I've also realised that there's a real issue surrounding teacher burnout and teacher stress levels, and dealing with the really high energy, high demand that being a teacher is. So actually part of me working with trainee teachers, and working also with experienced teachers has been helping them to realise.
We have Miss Wylde with really dodgy internet today. She's just moved into a forest. Mrs. Dearman, why don't you take over until Miss Wylde's back?
Thank you so much. I'm also so happy to be here. I love having these conversations with teachers and like-minded people. So I'm Mrs. Dearman. I'm also a secondary school science teacher. I actually only teach biology, and the reason why that is because I actually teach in the private sector, so very different from Miss Wylde's experience. I am also assistant Senko. I also recently did a maternity cover for a Senko role as well. So my passion very much lies with pupils with special educational needs. And the reason why this is because my own personal experience. I managed to get through most of the education system all the way up to my final year of university being undiagnosed with dyslexia. And I recognise as an adult, unfortunately, the negative impacts that had on me as a child and how I viewed myself and my ability because I was undiagnosed and I struggled a lot. So that has led me to hopefully one day become Senko of a school. But yes, I'm so happy to be here. And just like Ms. Wylde said, we both recognise teacher burnout and it's such a big thing at the moment. So I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Brilliant. Miss Wylde, do you want to finish off what you said?
I think I said the most of it, but essentially I really enjoy working with trainee teachers and experienced teachers to make sure that they are given tips and understand how to manage their workload. So not only can they look after themselves, but they can be an outstanding teacher without staying at school for a ridiculous amount of hours and working beyond what any human really should.
Okay. Wow, that's amazing. I'm so glad you're both here because one of the reasons I wanted you both on is you both have so much energy, and I've spoken to you in the middle of term, at the beginning of term, and the end of term, and you both still have that energy and that enthusiasm. And I watch other teachers who are just getting more and more drained, and somehow you are both not. So would you share with us some of your top tips of how you manage to do more than just survive? You are really thriving, aren't you? I'm not saying every day is perfect or anything like that, but how do you have some magic keys that you would share?
I think the biggest one for me, and I think I've spoken to you about it before, is creating your life timetable. So rather than just having your school timetable and you do stuff outside of school, you actually create a bit of a life timetable, not so much for the weekends, and it doesn't have to be set in stone, but it gives you a bit of an idea about what your plan is every morning. You go to school, what are you doing in your PPAs? What are you doing in your frees? And then what time is your non-negotiable time to leave school? And what are you doing with your evening? Are you taking your laptop home? Are you leaving it at school? So really breaking down your life into little chunks, little hours, and deciding what you're going to do and making sure that you're not overdoing it. And I think for me, I haven't done it yet because I'm just settling into a new school, but it's on my to-do list. And by the end of this week, I would have created my timetable, and I will share that with you. I would have created my timetable of what time I get up, what time I get to school, what I'm doing in the mornings, what my PPAs look like, and then what time I leave school each evening, and how I'm looking after myself in the evening every evening.
That's fantastic, and I'm sure lots of people would like to see what your timetable. What did you say? It was a life timetable. I think
Yes, a lifetime table.
Yeah, I love that. And I suppose someone might be listening to this and saying, "Oh, that's so. How do you manage that?" Because what teachers say to me is that they try and leave at 5 or 6, and they haven't finished it, so then they have to complete their marking and things like that at home.
I think it's a big thing, and it's something. I think it's harder for ECTs. I think it's harder for trainee teachers, and I will admit that. And I think in my training years, I did put more hours in. However, I think there's a lot more that can be done about it now. And I think the biggest thing is learning to be okay with your to-do list. Learning to be okay that to-do list will never, ever, ever, ever be done. It will always be there. And that's okay, because you'll just pick it up tomorrow. And there is pre-planning. You need to know when your marking's due in, and you need to put that into your life timetable. When are you going to do your marking that fits in? So what was a little bit of more downtime when there wasn't marking or wasn't assessment points, that becomes your marking time. And you're not always going to get it right, but that's okay. But being comfortable with the to-do list is the biggest thing. So I had my to-do list when I left work this afternoon really. And I put the 3 major things that I've got to do when I first get in the morning, and I'll do them in the morning, because nothing's going to happen between now and then, and I'll just deal with it then. Your students will 1000% prefer a teacher that is awake and happy than having an extra slide on the PowerPoint with a prettier picture. So you are important, and your students will prefer a happy teacher that can wing it on that slide.
Yeah, I love that. I'm hearing 2 things really. I'm hearing that you're being quite firm with yourself and your boundaries about what time you're leaving. You're being very strategic in the way that you use your life planner and planning ahead, so that things go very carefully into it. And that pre-planning is really crucial, isn't it? Particularly, if when your assessment weeks are coming up and all of that type of parents' evening and things, so you can manage the sort of the points where it all gets a little bit much because you've planned ahead. Would you agree?
I think Miss Wylde has made a really good point there. I really love the one where she said you need to be comfortable with your to-do list.
Yeah.
Because as a teacher, I initially really struggled with that. So I came from a corporate job in London where my whole job essentially was to clear my inbox. And it happened at the end of every day, I had to clear my inbox. I then went into teaching, and just like Miss Wylde said, I had to get comfortable with actually your to-do list is never done. But I'd say it took me a good 2 years to really get comfortable with that, because I think naturally I'm quite a well-organized person. I think it comes quite easy to me compared to other people. I know it's a challenge for them. But with that comes the struggle of, if you don't get that done, I get a lot of anxiety and I get a lot of stress. Like Miss Wylde said, the extra slide on my PowerPoint with a prettier picture historically would have been like really important to me, especially as an ECT, because I think, oh, that's so much better for their learning. Yes, it absolutely is, but not at the detriment of me not being happy and present and not stressed in the classroom. So I think that's a fantastic point.
Yeah, crucial, isn't it? And actually, we almost want to say to people listening to this today, you have permission to leave certain things on your to-do list till tomorrow morning. And one of the other things that I teach is tomorrow morning when you go in, do that worst job first, that one that you've been putting off, because while your brain is the freshest, first thing, don't be distracted by anything else. There's always bits and bobs you can do, but go and get that worst thing that just sits on your shoulders and weighs you down. Just get it done. And that's another slash off your to-do list as well.
We actually spoke to someone the other day about this. They were saying organize your tasks into how much cognitive load they have. So if you know you're a morning person, then do your high cognitive load tasks in the morning, and then do your low cognitive tasks in the afternoon. I personally do.
Okay, Mrs. Dearman, what do you do? Would you do high cognitive load first thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm such a morning person. I do not function well after 4 p.m. It will take me twice as long to do a task. So I do all my high cognitive loads in the morning. Some people are the exact opposite. I've got colleagues within my science department that will come in bang on 8 a.m. when you're allowed to, latest you can come into school. They'll come in then, and then they'll do all of their evening tasks at like 9 p.m. I couldn't do that. So just working out what's right for you is really important. So I also do a life timetable. I actually got this off Miss Wylde, and since I've adopted it, it's been really good. I even put into my life timetable things like when me and my partner are going out for dinner. Because what I found when I became a teacher is that actually my whole existence became being a teacher. And I didn't prioritize my friendships. I didn't prioritize going to the gym. And I didn't prioritize spending time with my partner. My whole focus was being a teacher, and it became really unhealthy. And yes, in your ECT years, you will be spending more time with lesson planning, learning the content, of course. But my boundaries have got better now. And it has been a lot because of my life planner. So I would really recommend one. For me personally, the most important thing for me in terms of reducing my burnout is I have something that's called a slow morning, and it really works for me. So my alarm will go off at 6:15, but I do not leave the house until 7:45. So my alarm goes off at 6:15. I'm really someone that really likes to relax in the morning. So I don't get out of bed for at least 20 minutes, which is great for me. I don't speak to anyone. I just lie in bed, wake up slowly. I then go downstairs and I make myself a coffee in my espresso machine, which I love, and make myself an oat milk latte. And then feed the cats and watch the news for about half an hour. I find it really relaxing. If I've had mornings where I've needed to be out really early for whatever reason, I feel flustered and I feel stressed. It doesn't work for me. In the morning, I also always make my bed. I have a very routine. I also make my bed. If there's any washing that needed to be done, I put the washing machine on. I unsack the dishwasher. I make sure my home life is all set. My partner's the exact opposite. He can get up in the morning, go straight to work, and the house is a mess. If I did that, I would just be very stressed. So I have this really slow morning. I watch the news. I put on some music. I make sure everything's right at home. And I have about an hour and a half. I am very lucky in the fact that I don't have children, so I have time to do this. This is not possible for everyone. However, when I have spoken to people that have children, they do the same, but they get up half an hour before their children do. So they still have that time where they're just with themselves. They have a lovely coffee. They do whatever needs to be done, like bits around the house, but nothing rushed. So they can have that moment of peace. I think in teaching, the environment that we work in is very loud and very chaotic. It was obviously something that was very different from my office job. So the headaches I used to get when I went from that life to in a school were quite extreme. But for me, this is the perfect setup for the day. Like I said, it doesn't work for everyone because everyone's not morning people like me. It does also mean that I have to go to bed at about 9 p.m. to get up that early. I like a good 9 hours sleep. So
Wow.
That really helps my burnout.
Yeah, I love that. Well, research shows that if you have a really solid routine for both the start and end of your day, it reduces, again, your cognitive load, and it takes the pressure off your mind. So it's really interesting that you found that way to do it that works for you. How about you, Miss Wylde?
In terms of the end of my day?
Or a routine that works for you, perhaps, or another
routine.
strategy that you have.
Yeah, of course. So I think, again, it's working out what's really key for you. So for me, I think it actually comes back to sort of that to-do list, knowing that, and the cognitive load, knowing the things that I need high cognitive load for, putting them in either a PPA or in the morning. And then in the evening, I really use that time to clear away the books, make sure that all of the, so I highlight some of the stuff in the books at the end of the day, but it's become a really quick task. It's a 5-minute task. It means that I'm really confident with what my students have done, and I can put it away. And it's sort of, as I put those books away, it's like I'm putting the day away. And then I clean my desk, again, nice. It's sort of cleaning the classroom and cleaning the desk is like cleaning my mind. And I write down the top 3 things that I need to do when I get in as a priority, when I've got cognitive load. And I don't stress about them until that morning, because there's no point, because I know I haven't got the cognitive capacity, and that's okay. And then I leave school at whatever time is on my life planner, and I go out and I do whatever is right for me, whatever I want to do that evening. Sometimes it's Mrs. Dearman and I's passion project, which is obviously the teacher experience, or it's going to the gym. So I love the gym. That's really something that I do for my well-being. Or I come home and spend some time with my partner. But I'm sort of with Miss Dearman on the fact of, if your life admin is clean and your work admin is clean as much as possible, your mind is clean and clear, and you feel just a lot more relaxed. But we do speak to a lot of other teachers that use meditation techniques, they use breath work, they use tapping, they use journaling. I think it's just a case of finding outside of the classroom what's your non-negotiable, what time are you going to leave, and what are you going to go and do as your non-negotiable to make you feel better.
Yeah.
So one big difference between Miss Wylde and I, and neither is right or wrong, is Miss Wylde is very good at going to the gym. I am not. I know it's something, obviously I'm a science teacher. I know it's something, it's really important for my health. It's really important for my headspace. I put my gym in my life planner. I go every Tuesday, and then I go once on the weekend. So it's Saturday or Sunday in my life planner. Miss Wylde can go a lot more than that. I can't, and that's okay. And that's still good for my health. What I do instead, and I'm really grateful my school has capacity for this, is I go on a walk every lunchtime. Okay. And that just allows me to go outside in the fresh air, in the quiet. I don't listen to music. I don't speak to anyone. I go on my own. And that's my sort of well-being walk, I call it, during my lunchtime break. Because I also know I'm not going to go to the gym in the evening.
Yeah. Do you know, I love that, because all the research says that if you take a bit more care of yourself, especially in proper rest or re-energizing, whatever that looks like for you, and it's different for all of us, then you are more productive and your brain works better. And yet teachers keep telling me that one of their biggest problems is lack of productivity and brain sort of fog, because they're not getting proper rest. But you two are setting a fantastic example of that. And I love that. And I've just actually finished my journal for, it's 52 weeks of for teachers, and it's with the designer at the moment. And one of the I think the 2 last weeks that I researched and then wrote about, one was decluttering, and that's all about what you were talking about. And the other one, of course, is boundaries. And we as teachers, because a lot of us are people pleasers, we're not very good at that. But I love that you're setting an example. So I want to encourage people to find out about what you do, and how can people find out? Where do they find you?
Absolutely. Miss Wylde and I also have a podcast, and it's called the Teacher Experience Podcast. And you can also find us on Instagram as well, at the Teacher Experience 24.
Brilliant. Well, I will obviously put in the show notes how to get hold of Mrs. Dearman and Miss Wylde. But I want to say thank you so much, because you're setting a very high bar of what is possible for teachers, and that gives people hope. And just looking at this term going forward this school year, that actually they can be strong, they can have energy, and they can do it in a better, more healthy way. They don't need to burn out, but actually it's going to take some strong boundaries and some very strategic planning, which is what you're doing. And Miss Wylde, if you could share that document, I will see if I can attach it onto the show notes for people, because I just think that would be really helpful for others to see how to do that.
Yes, of course, I can share that. And I think, to your listeners, just always reach out to any of us, because at the end of the day, we're all teachers here to support each other.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you so very much, both of you. And to the listeners, thanks for listening. And I look forward to the next podcast coming up soon. Thanks for listening. I hope you took something of value from today. If you want to connect, I'm at rowenahicks.com, or I have a Facebook group, which is Preventing Teacher Burnout. So I look forward to connecting to you at one of those.